Ji-won stood on the rooftop of a broken building and watched her world die. The sky above Seoul glowed red and orange, painted by fires that stretched from horizon to horizon. 3 massive alien ships hung in the clouds like dark mountains, their weapons still firing down at the city below. Each blast turned another block into dust and smoke. She had been a pilot once, flying fast jets for the Korean Air Force. That felt like a lifetime ago, though only 6 hours had passed since the aliens arrived. 6 hours since they appeared in Earth's sky without warning. 6 hours since they started killing everyone. The radio on her belt crackled with static and desperate voices. People screaming for help. Soldiers calling for ammunition that would never come. Mothers looking for their children in the ruins. Ji-won turned the volume down but did not turn it off. She needed to hear it, needed to remember what she was fighting for. "Commander!" a voice called from the stairwell behind her. It was Dae-hyun, covered in dust and blood that was not his own. The big Marine had fought his way through the burning streets to reach her position. "The last evacuation shuttles are leaving. We need to go now." Ji-won shook her head slowly. "Not yet. There are still people down there." "There are people everywhere," Dae-hyun said, his voice gentle but firm. "We cannot save them all. If we stay, we die too. Then who will fight tomorrow?" He was right. Ji-won knew he was right, but accepting it felt like swallowing broken glass. She took one last look at the city where she had been born, where she had learned to fly, where she had fallen in love and lost everything. Then she turned away. They made their way down through the damaged building, stepping over rubble and collapsed walls. In the streets below, people were running in every direction. Some carried children or elderly parents on their backs. Others pushed carts full of belongings they would never need again. The alien ships did not care. Their weapons fired at random, turning crowds into red mist. "There!" Dae-hyun pointed toward an alley where a group of soldiers were gathering survivors. They were loading people onto trucks, trying to get them to the underground bunkers before the next wave of attacks came. Ji-won and Dae-hyun ran to help. An old woman had fallen, and no one had time to stop. Ji-won scooped her up, surprised at how light she was. How fragile humans were when you really looked at them. The woman clutched Ji-won's uniform and whispered something in Korean, a prayer, or maybe a curse. Ji-won carried her to the nearest truck and handed her to waiting arms. "Move! Move!" someone was shouting. "They're targeting this sector!" The ground shook as another explosion tore through a building 2 blocks away. The blast wave knocked several people off their feet. Ji-won grabbed a young girl who had been separated from her mother and pushed her toward the truck. The mother screamed her daughter's name. They reached for each other as the truck pulled away, fingers almost touching but not quite. Then the world turned white. The blast hit so close that Ji-won felt her bones shake. She was thrown backward, hitting the ground hard enough to drive the air from her lungs. Her ears rang with a high-pitched whine. When her vision cleared, the truck was gone. So were the people who had been standing next to it. Just gone, as if they had never existed. Dae-hyun pulled her to her feet. His mouth was moving, but she could not hear the words. He was pointing toward a building with a subway entrance. They ran for it as the sky lit up with more weapons fire. Other survivors followed, a desperate stream of humanity fleeing underground like animals seeking shelter from a storm. The subway tunnels were packed with people, thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, all pressed together in the darkness. Emergency lights cast shadows on frightened faces. Children cried, old men prayed. Young couples held each other and said nothing because there was nothing left to say. Ji-won found a radio and tried to contact the military command center. Static. She tried other frequencies. More static. Finally, a voice broke through, weak and distant. "This is Dr. Minji broadcasting from Research Station 7. Is anyone receiving? This is Commander Ji-won. I'm reading you. What is your status?" "Alive, for now. We're in a bunker 30 meters underground. Commander, I need to tell you something. We've been monitoring the alien weapons. There's something strange about them. Strange how? The energy signatures. Every time they fire, the readings spike on our seismic monitors. It's like the blasts are feeding energy into the Earth's core. I don't understand it yet, but... The transmission cut off. Ji-won tried to reconnect, but got only static. She looked at Dae-hyun, who had been listening. What does it mean? He asked. I don't know, but Minji is the smartest person I've ever met. If she thinks it's important, it is. Above them, through hundreds of meters of rock and concrete, the bombardment continued. The aliens were called the Threx Empire, according to the brief message they had sent before the attack. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They took what they wanted and killed everyone who resisted. Earth was just another planet to strip mine and abandon. But the Threx had made a mistake. They thought Earth was just rock and water, a dead ball spinning in space. They did not know about the forests that had grown for millions of years, the oceans that had birthed the first life, the magnetic fields that had protected that life from cosmic radiation. The complex web of living things that made the planet more than just a planet. They did not know that Earth was alive. Ji-won felt a vibration through the tunnel floor. At first, she thought it was another explosion, but this was different, deeper. It came from below rather than above. Other people felt it too. Conversations stopped. Everyone looked down at their feet with the same confused expression. Earthquake? Dae-hyun whispered. Maybe, Ji-won said. But she was remembering what Minji had said about the seismic monitors, about energy feeding into the Earth's core. The vibration grew stronger. Dust fell from the ceiling. People started to panic, pressing toward the exits. But Ji-won stood still, feeling the pulse through her boots. It was steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. High above on the surface, the Threx commander stood in his command ship and watched the planet burn. His name was unpronounceable in human languages, but he thought of himself as the Conqueror. He had destroyed 47 worlds before this one. Earth would be 48. His second officer approached, looking troubled. Commander, the ground forces are reporting anomalies. What kind of anomalies? Unusual seismic activity, magnetic field fluctuations. Some of the soldiers say the weather is turning against them. But that's probably just fear talking. The Conqueror waved a clawed hand dismissively. The planet is reacting to our weapons. It means nothing. Continue the bombardment. I want every human city reduced to ash by dawn. Yes, Commander. But deep in the tunnels beneath Seoul, Ji-won felt the heartbeat grow stronger. And somewhere in her bones, in a place older than thought or language, she understood. Earth was waking up, and it was angry. The first volcano erupted at dawn. Mount Fuji, dormant for 300 years, exploded with such force that the sound could be heard across the entire Pacific Ocean. Then Yellowstone followed. Then Vesuvius. Then dozens more, all within the same hour. Volcanoes that had slept for centuries or millennia suddenly woke up and screamed fire into the sky. Ji-won watched the reports come in on a cracked tablet screen. She sat in what used to be a subway maintenance room, now converted into a command center. Maps covered the walls, marked with red dots showing Threx positions and blue dots showing human survivors. There were far more red dots than blue. It makes no sense, said Sun-woo, the geologist who had joined them during the night. He was a thin man with thick glasses that kept sliding down his nose. These volcanoes are nowhere near the bombardment sites. There's no geological reason for them to erupt simultaneously. Unless it's not geological, Minji said quietly. She had made it to their position an hour before sunrise, emerging from the tunnels with a laptop full of data. Unless it's something else? What else could it be? Dae-hyun asked. He was cleaning his rifle, the same thing he did whenever he got nervous. Minji pulled up a graph on her screen. It showed jagged lines spiking up and down. This is the seismic data from the last 12 hours. Every time the Threx fire their weapons, we get a spike. But look here. She pointed to a section where the lines formed an almost regular pattern. This isn't random. This is rhythmic. The Earth is responding to the attacks. The Earth is a rock, Daehyun said. Rocks don't respond to anything. Tell that to the volcanoes, Sunwoo muttered. Yuna, the communications specialist, suddenly sat up straight. I'm getting reports from all over. Threx ground troops are requesting emergency extraction. They're saying... She paused, listening to her headset. They're saying the forests are attacking them. Everyone turned to stare at her. Forests don't attack people, Daehyun said. Tell that to the Threx, Yuna replied. Jiwon stood up and walked to the wall map. She studied the red dots marking enemy positions. Get me Lieutenant Tae-jin. His scout team is near one of their camps. I want eyes on this. It took 20 minutes to establish contact with Tae-jin's team. They were hiding in the remains of a shopping mall, watching a Threx encampment through the broken windows. Tae-jin's voice came through scratchy but clear. Commander, I don't know how to explain what we're seeing. The aliens set up camp in that park by the river, but overnight the trees moved. I know how that sounds, but there are trees surrounding their position now that weren't there before, and the roots, they're breaking through their equipment, wrapping around their vehicles. Trees don't move, Lieutenant, Jiwon said, though her voice was uncertain. I know what I'm seeing, Commander. And there's more. The river changed course. It was flowing east yesterday. Now it's flowing north right through their camp. They're trying to dig channels to redirect it, but the water keeps finding new ways through. Jiwon looked at Minji, who was already pulling up satellite imagery on her laptop. The scientist's face went pale. He's right, Minji whispered. Look at this. The topography has changed. Rivers are shifting all over the planet. Mountain ranges are rising. Ocean currents are reversing. It's happening everywhere the Threx have landed. That's impossible, Sunwoo said, but his voice shook. 2 days ago, I would have agreed with you, Minji replied. But we're past impossible now. The planet is reacting to the invasion. It's defending itself. Daehyun set down his rifle slowly. You're saying the Earth is alive? I'm saying the Earth is more complex than we understood. The biosphere, the geology, the magnetic field, the weather systems, they're all connected in ways we never studied because we never needed to. But now that connection is being used. Earth recognizes the Threx as a threat, and it's fighting back. The room fell silent. Outside, they could hear distant thunder, though the sky had been clear minutes before. The ground trembled slightly, a constant low vibration that had not stopped since the previous evening. Commander, Yuna suddenly called out, I'm picking up a transmission from the Threx fleet. It's on an open channel. They're not even encrypting it. Play it, Jiwon ordered. A harsh alien voice filled the room, translated into Korean by their computer. All ground forces, report status. Multiple units are not responding. Command requires immediate situation updates from all sectors. Another voice answered. This one panicked. Sector 7 reporting. We are under attack by... we don't know what. The ground opened up beneath our supply depot. Everything fell into a sinkhole. Request immediate extraction. Sector 12. The magnetic storms are scrambling our navigation. We cannot find our way back to the landing zone. 3 vehicles are lost. Requesting guidance. Sector 4. The humans are attacking our position. They appeared from nowhere. How do they know where we are? It's like the planet is telling them. More voices joined in, all reporting impossible things. Weather that targeted only alien positions. Earthquakes that struck with surgical precision. Wildlife that seemed to coordinate attacks on isolated troops. Equipment that corroded in hours instead of years. The Threx commander's voice cut through the chaos. All units will hold their positions. These are natural phenomena, nothing more. The planet is reacting to our weapons fire. It will stabilize. Continue your missions. But even through the alien translation, Ji-won could hear the doubt in his voice. They're scared, Daehyun said with satisfaction. They should be, Minji replied. We all should be, because I don't think Earth is just defending itself anymore. I think it's angry. As if in response, the ground shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered and died, leaving them in darkness lit only by emergency glow sticks and laptop screens. When the shaking stopped, Taejin's voice crackled over the radio. Commander, you need to see this. The Threx camp is gone. A earthquake hit it directly. Their buildings collapsed. Their vehicles are buried. But the park around it is untouched. The trees are fine. The grass is still green. It's like the earthquake knew exactly where to strike. Ji-won felt a chill run down her spine. She looked around the room at the faces of her team, all showing the same mixture of fear and hope. Get me a connection to every survivor group, she said. I don't care how you do it. Radio, runners, smoke signals. I need to talk to everyone. It took hours to set up, but by noon they had established a network. Thousands of survivors across Korea, all listening on whatever radios or phones they still had working. Ji-won stood before a microphone, choosing her words carefully. This is Commander Ji-won to all resistance forces. You've all felt the earthquakes. You've seen the weather change. You've heard the reports from the field. I know it sounds crazy, but I need you to listen. The Earth is fighting back against the invaders. Our planet is defending itself, and by extension, it's defending us. She paused, letting that sink in. The Threx think we're beaten. They think they can strip our world bare and move on. But they don't understand what they're facing. They've never fought a living planet before. And neither have we. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to help. We're going to hit them when they're confused and scared. We're going to be the Earth's teeth and claws. When the planet shakes them, we strike. When storms blind them, we attack. We are not alone in this fight anymore. We never were. Across the city, in 100 different shelters, people listened. Some believed. Some thought she had lost her mind. But all of them felt it. That pulse through the ground. That sense of something vast and ancient stirring beneath their feet. High above, the Threx commander stood at his command console and watched his invasion fall apart. Reports flooded in from every landing site. Equipment failures, communication breakdowns, entire units going silent, and always the reports of impossible weather, targeted earthquakes, hostile terrain. Commander, his second officer said hesitantly, the losses are mounting. Perhaps we should consider withdrawal. No. The word came out as a snarl. We have conquered 47 worlds. We will not be defeated by natural disasters. Double the bombardment. If the planet wants to fight, we'll burn it until there's nothing left alive to resist. But even as he gave the order, the conqueror felt something he had not felt in his long career of conquest. He felt doubt. And beneath that doubt, growing like a seed in poisoned soil, was fear. On the surface, Ji-won felt the bombardment intensify. The threats were escalating, but so was Earth. And she wondered, for the first time, which force would prove stronger, the alien empire's weapons or a planet's rage. The electromagnetic pulse hit at 3 in the morning. Every Threx orbital platform went dark simultaneously. Their communication satellites tumbled from the sky like burning stars. Their weapon systems went silent. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth's sky was quiet. Ji-won stood in the open air for the first time in days, watching the alien ships struggle in orbit. Lightning danced between them, not normal lightning but something else, something that seemed to seek out the metal hulls with purpose. The strikes came in waves, each one causing explosions that lit up the darkness. "It's beautiful," Hyejin whispered beside her. The young engineer had been working non-stop to keep their equipment functional. Her hands were scarred from electrical burns, and her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she smiled as she watched the enemy fleet burn. "It's terrible," Jiwan corrected gently, "but it's necessary." Daehyun climbed up to the rooftop to join them. "The Threx ground forces are in chaos. Half of them are trying to get back to their ships. The other half are trying to fortify their positions. They don't know what to do." "Then we help them decide," Jiwan said. "Send word to all units. We attack at dawn." The message spread through the resistance network. In bunkers and ruins across the world, survivors prepared for battle. They gathered weapons scavenged from dead aliens. They made plans. They said prayers or goodbyes or simply checked their ammunition one more time. They were tired and scared and outnumbered. But they were not alone. Dawn came with storms, massive hurricanes that appeared from nowhere and moved with impossible speed toward Threx positions. Tornadoes that touched down precisely on alien camps and nowhere else. Rain that fell like acid on their equipment but left human structures untouched. Colonel Seojin led the assault on the largest Threx base in Asia. She was a veteran of 20 years, gray-haired and hard-eyed, and she had lost her entire family in the first bombardment. She walked toward the enemy position with 200 soldiers behind her, while overhead the sky itself seemed to rage. The Threx saw them coming, their weapons charged up, energy crackling at the barrels. But when they fired, the shots went wild. The magnetic field was fluctuating too wildly for their targeting systems to compensate. Bolts of plasma flew into the sky or hit the ground meters away from their targets. Human weapons worked fine. Bullets and explosives didn't care about magnetic fields. The battle was short and brutal. The Threx fought with the desperation of trapped animals, but they were fighting on two fronts: the human assault from outside and the planet's fury from below. As Seojin's forces breached their perimeter, an earthquake split their command center in half. As they tried to regroup, a flash flood swept through their defensive positions, carrying vehicles and soldiers away in a torrent of muddy water. By noon, the base was in human hands. Seojin stood among the ruins and radioed Jiwan. "Target secured. Enemy casualties are—" "All of them, Commander. None surrendered. They fought to the last." "Understood," Jiwan replied. "Mark the location. We'll use it as a forward base." "Good work, Colonel." Similar reports came in from around the world. Threx bases were falling. Not because humanity had suddenly become stronger, but because the aliens had become weaker. Their technology was failing. Their supply lines were cut. Their orbital support was gone. And everywhere they turned, the planet itself fought against them. In the underground lab, Minji worked with Sunwoo to understand what was happening. They had seismic monitors, weather tracking equipment, and electromagnetic sensors all running simultaneously. The data was overwhelming. "Look at this," Sunwoo said, pointing to a display. "This earthquake started exactly when Colonel Seojin began her attack. And this storm system formed directly over the Threx retreat route. It's not coincidence anymore. The timing is too perfect." "The planet knows where they are," Minji said slowly. "It can sense them somehow. Their technology, their biology. Something about them registers as foreign, as wrong, and Earth is eliminating the threat." "But how does it know not to hurt us?" Minji shook her head. I think it's because we're part of it. We evolved here. Our DNA contains elements from this world. We breathe its air, drink its water, eat its plants. We're made of Earth. The Threx are not. To the planet, we're self, and they're other." "That's terrifying," Sunwoo whispered. "Yes," Minji agreed, "but it's keeping us alive." Young Jaemin, barely 16 years old, sat in front of a captured Threx computer system. He had always been good with computers, but alien technology was something else. Still, he had been working on it for days, and finally, he had found a way in. "Commander!" he called out excitedly. "I'm in their network. I can see their communications, their supply routes, even their command codes." Jiwan rushed to his station. "Can you disrupt them?" Better than that, I can feed them false information, make them think their reinforcements are coming, make them move their forces where we want them. Do it, Jiwon ordered. Send them right into the worst storms, right into earthquake zones. Let's make the planet's job easier. Jamin's fingers flew across the keyboard. Within minutes, false orders were spreading through the Threx network. Units were told to regroup in valleys that would soon flood. Retreat routes were redirected through areas where the ground was most unstable. Supply convoys were sent toward positions that no longer existed. The Threx commander received the reports with growing rage. Our own systems are lying to us. How is this possible? The humans have accessed our network, his second officer explained. We need to shut it down. If we shut it down, we lose all coordination. Our forces will be completely isolated. They already are, Commander. The electromagnetic storms make radio communication impossible. The network was our last link. The Conqueror stared at the tactical display. Red markers showing his forces blinked out one by one. Weeks ago, he had commanded a fleet of hundreds of ships and an army of millions. Now, fewer than a quarter of his forces remained, scattered and confused across a hostile world. This is impossible, he said. We have conquered 47 worlds. 47! We are the Threx Empire. We do not lose to primitives and their pet planet. But even as he spoke, another orbital platform exploded, hit by lightning that came from a clear sky. On the surface, Bora worked in a mobile medical station, treating wounded soldiers. The young doctor moved from patient to patient with steady hands, despite the chaos around her. Most of the wounds were minor. The battles had been short and decisive. But there were some who would not make it. She knelt beside a soldier who had taken a piece of shrapnel to the chest. His breathing was shallow and his skin was pale. "Am I dying?" he asked. Bora wanted to lie, but she had never been good at lying. "Yes," she said gently. "I'm sorry. Did we win?" She looked out through the tent opening at the clearing sky, at the alien ships burning as they fell from orbit. "Yes," she said. "We're winning." The soldier smiled. "Good. That's good." He closed his eyes and did not open them again. Bora felt the vibration through the floor of the tent, that constant pulse that had become so familiar. She pressed her hand flat against the ground and whispered, "Thank you." She did not know if the planet could hear her. She did not know if it even understood the concept of gratitude. But she said it anyway. By evening, the Threx were in full retreat. Every unit that could still move was heading toward their remaining landing sites, trying to get back to the fleet. But the storms followed them. The earthquakes chased them. Rivers rose to block their paths. The very air seemed to fight their passage. Daehyun led a pursuit team, harrying the enemy retreat. His soldiers moved through the ruins like ghosts, striking from unexpected angles and vanishing before the Threx could respond. They did not need to win stand-up fights. They just needed to keep the pressure on, keep the enemy moving, keep them scared. "They're breaking," one of his soldiers reported. "I saw a group of them throw down their weapons and just sit down. They've given up." "Keep pushing," Daehyun ordered. "Don't let them regroup." But privately, he felt a strange pity. The Threx had come to conquer and had found only death. He had seen enough death lately. He would have preferred to see them simply leave. As if hearing his thoughts, the ground shook violently. A massive earthquake, bigger than any before, struck every Threx position simultaneously. Their remaining bases collapsed. Their vehicles toppled. Their soldiers were thrown from their feet. And in that moment of chaos, Ji-won's voice came over every radio. "All Threx forces, this is Commander Ji-won of Earth's Defense Forces. Your invasion has failed. Your fleet is crippled. Your armies are defeated. You have one chance. Leave this planet now. Leave this solar system. Never return. If you stay, Earth will destroy every one of you. This is your only warning. High in orbit, the Conqueror heard the message. He looked at his second officer. "Prepare the fleet for departure," he said quietly. "But, Commander, our ground forces are dead whether we stay or go. At least in retreat, some of us will survive to report what happened here." The order went out. The remaining Threx ships began to pull away from Earth, leaving their ground troops behind to whatever fate awaited them. As they climbed toward the stars, solar flares erupted from the sun, bathing their ships in radiation. Even the sun seemed eager to see them gone. On Earth, the survivors emerged from their shelters to watch the enemy flee. They did not cheer. They were too exhausted for that, but they stood together under the clearing sky and felt the pulse beneath their feet. And they knew. The worst was over. Earth had won. The Threx flagship was called the Destroyer of Worlds. Jiwon thought that was a stupid name as she and her strike team approached it through the debris field that used to be the enemy fleet. But she kept that opinion to herself and focused on not dying. Electromagnetic pulse in 3, 2, 1. Heejin pressed a button on the modified device strapped to her back. A wave of energy burst outward, invisible but powerful. The Threx sensors went blind for exactly 30 seconds. It was all the time they needed. The small transport ship darted through the gap in the flagship's defenses and latched onto an airlock. Major So-young set the charges on the door with practiced efficiency. "Fire in the hole," she said calmly, and then the airlock exploded inward. The strike team poured through. Jiwon led the way, her rifle ready. Behind her came Daehyun, So-young, Hyejin, and 6 other soldiers, all volunteers who knew they probably would not come back. Their mission was simple: capture the Threx commander and force him to call off any remaining attacks. Simple, but not easy. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Threx soldiers rushed toward them, but they moved slowly, awkwardly. The artificial gravity was fluctuating wildly. The electromagnetic storms that Earth was generating made the ship's systems unstable. "Left corridor," Jiwon ordered. Jaemin had provided them with maps of the ship's layout, stolen from the alien database. The command center was 12 levels up and half a kilometer forward. They had to move fast. The first firefight happened at a junction. Threx soldiers appeared from 3 directions, their weapons crackling with energy. But Hyejin's modifications to the human equipment worked perfectly. Their gear was shielded against the magnetic interference. Human bullets flew straight while alien plasma bolts curved and scattered. "Keep moving," Daehyun shouted, laying down covering fire as the team advanced. One of their soldiers went down, hit by a lucky shot. So-young paused to check him but shook her head. They could not stop for the dead. Outside the ship, Earth's fury continued. Lightning struck the hull in waves. Solar flares bathed the fleet in radiation. The magnetic field twisted and pulled at the metal structures, making them groan and buckle. Jiwon could feel it through her boots, that now familiar pulse, that heartbeat of an angry planet. It gave her strength. They fought their way up through the ship level by level. The Threx fought desperately, but their coordination was falling apart. Some groups fired on each other by mistake in the chaos. Others simply fled, more interested in reaching escape pods than defending their commander. On the 8th level, they found something unexpected. A group of Threx soldiers huddled in a storage room, their weapons on the floor, their hands raised in what might have been surrender. Yanwu, the translator, stepped forward cautiously. She had been studying the alien language since the invasion began. "They say they do not want to fight," she reported. "They say the commander is insane. They say he is still giving orders to attack, even though the fleet is destroyed." Jiwon looked at the terrified aliens. They were young, she realized. Their equivalent of teenagers, maybe. Conscripts who had not asked to invade Earth. "Tell them to stay here," she said. "If they stay in this room and do not fight, we will not kill them," Yanwu translated. The aliens slumped in relief. The team moved on. 3 more levels. 2. 1. They were close now. The command center was just ahead, behind reinforced doors that would take time to breach, time they might not have. Then the ship lurched violently. Emergency lights flickered on as the main power failed. Through the walls, they could hear the groan of overstressed metal. "Earth just hit them with something big," Hyejin said, checking her sensors. "The ship's orbit is destabilizing. If we don't get out soon, we'll fall into the atmosphere." "Then we work faster," Jiwon said. "So-young, the doors." The demolitions expert set her charges carefully. "Everyone back. This is a big one." The explosion tore the command center doors apart. Smoke and debris filled the corridor. The strike team charged through, weapons raised, ready for a final fight. The Threx commander stood alone at his console, surrounded by displays showing the destruction of his fleet. Dead Threx officers lay around him. He had shot them himself when they tried to convince him to retreat. His weapon was still in his clawed hand, but he did not raise it. "You," he said in heavily accented Korean, translated by implants he had taken from a dead human. "You are the voice on the radio, the commander." "I am," Jiwon said, her rifle aimed at his head. "Order your forces to stand down, all of them, everywhere." The commander laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping. "There are no forces left to command. You have already won. The planet has already won. Why do you come here?" "To make sure you understand," Jiwon said. "To make sure you tell your empire what happened here. So they never come back." "Tell them?" The commander laughed again. "Oh, I will tell them. I will tell them we fought primitives on a dead world and lost. I will tell them their weapons turned against them, their ships fell from the sky, their soldiers died to earthquakes and storms. I will tell them the planet itself rose up to destroy us, and do you know what they will say?" He leaned forward, his eyes blazing. "They will say I am insane. They will say I failed because I am weak. They will send another fleet to finish what we started. Because the Threx Empire does not stop. We have conquered 47 worlds. We will conquer this one too, eventually. We will come back with better weapons, better shields, better soldiers. We will burn this planet to bedrock rather than let it defeat us." Jiwon felt a chill run down her spine. Not because she feared his words, but because she believed them. The Threx would come back. And next time, they would be ready for Earth's defenses. "Then we will be ready too," she said quietly. Minji's voice suddenly crackled in her earpiece. "Commander, I'm receiving data from all over the planet. You need to see this. Earth's activity is increasing exponentially. It's like the planet heard him, like it understood the threat." On the surface, survivors watched in awe as the sky turned green. The aurora borealis, normally only visible near the poles, spread across the entire planet. But this was not a natural aurora. This was something else, something that pulsed with purpose. The oceans rose in massive tides, not random but coordinated, as if every drop of water was moving with single intent. The tectonic plates shifted, not violently but precisely, forming new mountain ranges in hours instead of millions of years. The magnetic field intensified, creating a barrier that would make it nearly impossible for ships to approach the planet without being torn apart. Sunwoo stood in his lab, watching the instruments go wild. "It's terraforming itself," he whispered in amazement. "Earth is changing its own structure, making itself into a fortress." On the flagship, the Threx commander saw the readings and his face went pale. "What? What is it doing?" "It is making sure you never come back," Jiwon said. "It is making sure no one ever threatens its children again." The ship shook violently. Structural supports groaned and snapped. They were falling, pulled down by gravity and magnetic forces too strong to resist. "Everyone out!" Daehyun shouted. "Back to the transport! Now!" The team ran. The commander tried to follow, but Jiwon blocked his path. "You stay," she said coldly. "You wanted to destroy our world. Now our world will destroy you. You cannot leave me here. That is murder." "No," Jiwon said. "That is justice." She turned and ran, following her team through the dying ship. Behind her, the commander's screams faded into the groaning metal and distant thunder. They made it to the transport with seconds to spare. Hyejin fired the engines and they pulled away from the flagship just as it began to break apart. Through the view screen, they watched the massive ship tear itself to pieces as it fell toward Earth. It burned like a second sun, breaking into smaller and smaller fragments until nothing remained but ash and light. The transport limbed through the debris field toward the surface. All around them, the remnants of the Threx fleet were falling, pulled down by forces they could not resist. The war was over. The enemy was defeated. But as they descended through the atmosphere, passing through storms that parted to let them through, Jiwon thought about the commander's words. The Threx would come back, maybe not tomorrow or next year, but eventually. And next time they would know what they faced. She looked at her team, exhausted and wounded but alive. She thought about all the people on the surface, rebuilding their lives in the ruins. She thought about Earth itself, vast and ancient and now fully awake. "Let them come," she said quietly. "We will be ready." The transport touched down in Seoul, in a clear spot among the rubble. As the team stepped out, they felt it, that pulse through the ground, stronger than ever before. Earth's heartbeat, and somehow, impossibly, they could feel their own hearts beating in sync with it. They were home, and home would never let them fall. 5 years later, Jiwon stood on the same rooftop where she had watched her world burn. But Seoul looked different now. The city had been rebuilt, though not in the old way. The new buildings grew organically from the landscape, their walls covered in living plants that cleaned the air and regulated temperature. Streets followed the natural contours of the land, rather than cutting straight through them. It was a city that worked with the earth instead of against it. She watched the sunrise paint the sky orange and gold. No alien ships hung in the clouds. No weapons fire lit the horizon. Just peace and the quiet pulse of a living world beneath her feet. "You are up early," Minji said, climbing up to join her. The scientist looked different, too. Healthier, calmer. She had gray in her hair now and smile lines around her eyes. "Could not sleep," Jiwon admitted. "Today is the day." "Nervous?" "Terrified." They were expecting visitors. Not invaders this time, but ambassadors from 3 different alien civilizations. They had heard Earth's warning message, the one humanity had broadcast to the galaxy 5 years ago. They had come to talk, not to conquer. The first ship had arrived a week earlier, approaching slowly and cautiously. Its crew had been shocked when Earth's magnetic field had parted to allow them through, like a door opening for a welcomed guest. The planet could tell the difference between friends and threats. Minji checked her tablet. "The delegation will arrive at noon. The United Earth Coalition is ready. All the protocols are in place." The coalition was humanity's new government, formed in the years after the war. Ji-won served as one of its leaders, though she still thought of herself as just a soldier. Daehyun ran the Earth Defense Forces, training new soldiers in tactics that combined human strategy with an understanding of their planet's capabilities. Hyejin led the reconstruction efforts, building cities that were sustainable and integrated with nature. They had all changed. The war had transformed them. But more than that, Earth itself had changed them. "Do you still feel it?" Ji-won asked. "The connection?" Minji nodded. "Every day. I always know where true north is now. I can sense weather changes hours before they happen. Sunwoo says he can feel earthquakes building from thousands of kilometers away. We are all like that now, everyone who survived the war. It was true. The humans who had lived through the invasion shared a subtle connection with their planet. Scientists like Minji spent years studying it, trying to understand the mechanism. The best theory was that the extreme stress of the war, combined with Earth's defensive response, had created a kind of resonance between human consciousness and the planetary biosphere, or maybe Earth had simply claimed its children more completely, marking them as its own, so it would always recognize them. Down in the city, people were preparing for the arrival, not with weapons or fear, but with curiosity. Children who had been born after the war played in streets their parents had fought to defend. They did not remember the burning sky or the desperate hiding. They only knew a world where the ground hummed with life and the weather seemed to care about human well-being. Dae-hyun approached, his uniform crisp despite the early hour. "The defense grid is ready. If the visitors try anything hostile, we can activate it in seconds." "They will not try anything," Ji-won said confidently. "Earth would know. It would react before they even made their move." "Still," Dae-hyun said with a slight smile. "Better to be prepared." He was right, of course. Humanity had not survived by being careless. The Earth Defense Forces trained constantly, ready for any threat. But their training was different now. They learned to work with the planet, to recognize its moods, to coordinate their movements with natural phenomena. Captain Taijin was teaching a class of new recruits how to sense seismic activity through their feet. Lieutenant Yuna had developed communication protocols that used Earth's electromagnetic field to send messages across continents without any technology. Sergeant Bora trained combat medics who could find medicinal plants that grew faster and stronger since the war, as if Earth was providing tools to heal its defenders. At the Institute for Planetary Consciousness Studies, Dr. Minji led a team of scientists from around the world. They studied the connection between Earth and its inhabitants. They mapped the planet's responses to different stimuli. They tried to understand what Earth had become, or perhaps what it had always been beneath the surface. "We used to think planets were dead rocks," Minji often said in her lectures. "But Earth is alive in ways we never imagined. Not conscious like a human, but aware in its own way. It responds to threats. It protects its biosphere. It recognizes its children. We are part of something vast and ancient, and we are only beginning to understand it." Young Jamin, no longer quite so young, worked in the diplomatic corps. His ability to interface with alien computer systems made him invaluable in establishing communication with other species. But he also spent time teaching children about technology, encouraging them to develop innovations that worked with nature rather than against it. At noon, the alien ambassadors arrived at the Coalition building. There were Vreln from Proxima Centauri, tall and crystalline, who communicated through light patterns. There were Kes from the Andromeda Galaxy, small and furred, with 6 eyes that never blinked. There were humans from the colony ships that had left Earth centuries before the war, shocked to find their homeworld so changed. Ji-won met them in the council chamber, a round room with walls of living wood and a ceiling open to the sky. Other coalition leaders sat with her, representatives from every continent, chosen for their wisdom and their strong connection to Earth. "Welcome," Ji-won said in Basic, the common language of galactic trade. "We are honored by your presence." The Vrelin ambassador glowed softly, her patterns translating to words. "We came because we heard your message. We had to see if it was true. A world that defends itself, a species that fights alongside its planet. We had to know if such things were possible." "It is possible," Ji-won confirmed, "but it is not easy. We nearly died to discover it. Billions of our people were lost. Our civilization was almost destroyed, but we survived, and we learned." The Kes ambassador spoke in a high musical voice. "The Threx Empire has fallen. Their military is scattered. Their economy collapsed. They tell stories of a world that fought back, a planet that destroyed their fleet. They call it the death world. They warn all others to stay away. We do not want isolation, Jiwan said carefully. We want peace. We want trade and friendship and cultural exchange, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. And any who come to conquer will find what the Threx found, a planet that does not surrender. The human colony representative leaned forward. How did it happen? How did Earth wake up? Minji fielded that question. We are still studying it. But our theory is that Earth was always aware in its own way. The biosphere is incredibly complex, with trillions of organisms all interconnected. Add in the geological processes, the magnetic field, the weather systems. It creates something like a distributed intelligence. When the Threx attacked, when they threatened to destroy all life, Earth responded as any organism would to an infection. It fought back. And the connection between your people and the planet? The Vrelin asked. We think the extreme stress of the war created a resonance. Our brains, under that much pressure, began to sync with Earth's natural rhythms. It started as survival instinct, knowing when earthquakes would strike, sensing safe paths through the chaos. But it became permanent. We are part of Earth now in a way we were not before. The ambassadors exchanged looks. The Kess spoke again. There are legends in the old records, stories of living worlds, of planets with souls. We thought they were myths, but you have proven they are real. Perhaps all worlds are alive, Sunwoo suggested. He had been invited to the meeting as an expert on planetary geology. Perhaps consciousness emerges wherever complex systems exist. Earth may be unique in how strongly it bonded with its intelligent species, but the potential might exist elsewhere. The meeting continued for hours. They discussed trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and defensive pacts. The alien ambassadors were cautious, but genuine in their desire for friendship. They had seen what happened to the Threx. They had no wish to repeat those mistakes. As the sun set, Jiwon walked with the ambassadors through the new Seoul. She showed them the buildings that grew from living wood, the streets that cleaned themselves through bioengineered moss, the transportation systems powered by Earth's geothermal energy. She showed them a civilization that had learned to thrive without exploiting its home. It is beautiful, the Vreln ambassador glowed. You have created something remarkable here. We did not create it alone, Jiwon said. Earth is our partner in this. We build, and it provides. We protect it, and it protects us. That is the relationship now. That night, Jiwon returned to her apartment, high in one of the living towers. Through her window, she could see the stars. Somewhere out there, the Threx Empire was still reeling from its defeat. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were hearing Earth's story and making their own choices about how to approach this strange world. But Jiwon was not worried. She placed her hand on the wall, feeling the faint pulse of life through the living wood. That same pulse echoed in her chest, in her bones, in every cell of her body. She thought about the children playing in the streets below, born into a world where humans and planets lived in conscious partnership. She thought about the future, about what humanity might become now that they understood their place in the cosmos. They were not conquerors. They were not separate from nature. They were Earth's children, protected by a parent's fierce love and part of something vast and beautiful and ancient. The ground hummed softly beneath her feet. That familiar heartbeat that had become as natural as breathing. Jiwon closed her eyes and felt the connection spread through her, connecting her to every human on the planet, to the forests and oceans, to the core of the world itself. Thank you, she whispered to the planet that had saved her species. And somewhere in the complex web of Earth's awareness, in the dance of magnetic fields and geological processes and living systems, too vast to comprehend, something acknowledged her gratitude. The world spun on, carrying its children safely through the void. And humanity, for the first time in its long history, truly understood what it meant to be home.